Hi, this is Deb, and we're doing a watercolor practice today called Abstract Flowers and Leaves. This project is a project using cold press watercolor paper and a variety of watercolors and finishing supplies. I'm using Liquitex gel to mount the paper onto a panel, watercolors from Van Gogh, Daniel Smith, and Lucas, and Dorland Wax Archival Finishing Wax. I'm doing 3 pictures at once today and using a variety of brushes. For the most part, I'll be using a large dagger brush for the largest portions of the painting. Here are my palettes. I was still kind of working out which colors I was going to be using, and at the end I ended up using Quinacridone Gold, Mayan Blue, and Pyrrole Orange. I'm spraying my palette to freshen up the paint and activate it so it's ready to go. And taking my dagger brush, I'm applying clear water to the paper that's been taped to my plastic panel. And I'm applying the water in the direction where I want the paint to go. I'm not doing a complete wash across the page, so I'm not filling the whole page with water to begin with. Here I'm putting on Quinacridone Gold, and now here's more clear water on the other 2 papers. And then we'll be adding more of the gold paint. Now this is a Quinacridone Gold, it's a yellow color from Daniel Smith, not to be confused with a gold accent paint from Lucas that you'll see me use towards the end of the video. Now the paint is wet, and I'm going to drop in Mayan Blue around the edges, and it's going to blend with the Quinacridone Gold to create a very soft green in certain areas on the page. That color magic happens right on the paper. You'll notice I'm holding my brush towards the end. That's so I'm not tempted to do any fine detail work, as this is a loose painting, and I'm very gentle in holding the brush in my hand and applying the color. I've already added the Pyrrole Orange for the brighter bits on the flowers and the page, and now I'm going back and adding in more Mayan Blue for some of the branches and suggestion of leaves. And the paint is still fairly wet on the page, so everything is moving around a little bit when it gets applied. These are really just fantasy flowers, and I'm watching what the paint does on the page and responding with my brush, just to come up with a final abstract painting. Now I'm taking the dried pictures and I am outlining areas where there are suggestions of either flower petals or leaves from stems. And I'm using a fine line Sharpie for this. I should be using an archival pen, but my pen was dry, so I picked up my Sharpie today, and that's what I'm using for my outlining on this paper. It worked okay, but just as a cautionary note, to my knowledge, Sharpies are not archival, so but certainly for an exercise, this is quite alright. So I look at the page and look at where the color is and decide in the moment where I'm going to be making my outlines for the various shapes, and it just kind of flows in the moment. That's one of the things I like about watercolor. It's very spontaneous. I finished the outlining, and now here I've got the gold metallic Lucas watercolor paint that I'm mixing up in a separate little palette. And I do that intentionally because I don't want to mix my metallic gold with my other colors when I'm working on something like this, because I don't want to contaminate my paint with metal flecks. Not that it's metal fleck, but it's got a metallic sheen, in case, you know, I'm painting something else in the future. But for right now, I'm mixing it up and using it just to apply accents in different places on the page. And when the picture is either on the wall or sitting on a shelf, depending on how the light is hitting it, you'll be able to see these little gold accents, and I think it'll be quite attractive. I move the page around just to see how it's acting in the light, and if I've got my accents where I want them. Now we're working on the smaller picture. And then finally, here are the last touches on the largest picture, which is 8 by 10. Now these pictures are going to be mounted on cradle board. Now in the case of the boards that I'm using today, I picked up a couple of them at the dollar store, and one of them I believe was from an art supply store. You can see me painting on the gel gloss, which is kind of like a Mod Podge. You put it on and it acts like a glue. It's archival and it does a fine job of attaching the paper to the panel. I'm using a brayer to spread out the gel gloss so that I make sure that I've got contact in all areas on that surface of that wooden block. Put my paper on, and then I'll pick it up and I will check that it's aligned properly. I've made little pencil marks in the corners just as guides, so I know where I need to have it situated. And then I'm just going to rub that in using a protective paper on the top. I'm checking again for contact, and now I will be putting a book, actually I put a pile of books, on top of that panel and let it sit for 24 hours. So the next day, here's my panel, it's dried, and I'm trimming off the edges of the paper that are sticking out on the sides of the panel with an X-Acto knife, and I'm using a protective surface to make those cuts on so I don't damage tabletop or my plastic painting cover. There we go. So I've left the edges of the panel just the bare wood. I'll be sealing them, I think, with just a clear sealer. But you can paint them, and if you're going to paint them, it's recommended you would do that before you mount the paper on the panel. There's the Dorland wax that's used as a finishing for the surface. It shields and protects the watercolor. And I'm using a soft piece of cotton to apply the wax. It kind of feels like shoe polish. And I'll just rub it around on the surface and put a thin coat on, and then I'll let it dry. And after it's dry, I'll buff it to a sheen. Here's the final product. There's the small and the medium-sized pictures. As you can see, you can stand them up so they could sit on a shelf, or you can put them on the wall. And there's all three of them together. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed these techniques, and it gives you some ideas for things that you can do on your own. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.